On this episode of the Commander Ship Show, we talk about Tom Cruise wanting to film in space, like actual space. We'll go into the AMC and Universal spat that's going on right now. We got some big Star Wars news yesterday, and also we're covering our second DCEU film, Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. I don't know why they didn't just call it Batman versus Superman, but whatever. We got all that and more starting now. It's Commander Ship and Tom DeGroh. We're back with another episode of the Commander Ship Show. How you doing tonight, Tom?
A bit sleepy, but doing really good otherwise.
Yeah. I had a really good May the 4th yesterday.
Oh, yes?
Yeah. Just going to roll us into some awesome Star Wars news that we got yesterday. If you didn't hear or saw our video from yesterday, Taika Waititi has been greenlit for his own Star Wars film. We don't know if that relates to the trilogy that was rumored a while back with the Game of Thrones writers or Rian Johnson's trilogy, so don't have any details like that. But if you liked Christy Kearns Wilson, she helped write on 1917 with Sam Mendes. She's going to help co-writing with Waititi. And if you saw Thor Ragnarok and Jojo Rabbit, which are definitely his films, honestly, yes. His version of Thor, even though we could nitpick some things in Ragnarok, is miles and a way better than Thor 1 and 2. It's like just infinitely better.
Yes. Yeah, and it was lucky he got a fully fleshed character at that point.
That late into the trilogy.
Yeah. I think his style is going to be perfect for Star Wars.
Yeah, totally agree. Moving on. So with all the coronavirus things going on right now, some states and cities are getting back into action for better or worse. And there's been talks about doing a checkerboard seating style, and this is particularly in Texas, where you would have to sit, leave a open space in the theater in order to create some distance between you and another person. Some of those have been single seat variations. Some of those have been double seat variations. And again, this is probably something that's going to have to be enacted regardless. So even if we were still going to stay in quarantine for the next couple of months, even when theaters come back, if we hit that July date where Tenet and Milan are trying to stay on the calendar, there's going to be some kind of separation even then. So this will be some of the first rollout of that. And then it's something that was additional in the Texas screening requirements, is they're going to have enforcement there at the door. I'm not sure how that was really going to work, but I think it was if there's anyone visibly sick trying to come into the theater, they were going to turn them away at the door, not allow them into the facilities.
I wonder if they're going to use a temperature gun.
That's I'd have to suspect that's going to play a part in it.
Not that has anything to do with carrying it, but and I as a moviegoer, I want this to work, and as cruel as it sounds, I'm very okay with Texas doing this experiment, but it feels like a Band-Aid on a bullet hole right now.
Yeah.
But if somebody's got to do it, let Texas be the Leroy Jenkins.
I mean, at least Leroy thought he could, it's I can do this. This is just but you want other people to be Leroy. That's where I would. All right, I don't want to get into it too much because we'll be here all night.
Yes.
Something I do want to dive.
Speaking of theaters,
though, something I want to spend a little bit more time on. I'm going to read a quote from the Universal CEO regarding. This was out in the. This is their CEO, Shell, put this out on the Wall Street Journal. And it's talking about the success of Trolls World Tour. And again, it was kid movie. It is what it is. It's going to be a soundtrack heavy movie, so you can just kind of enjoy what you enjoy out of it. Kids will love it. And with everyone being at home, with video on demand services, streaming has obviously been way up as far as like activity usage, and especially people buying rentals. So, and the quote is, "The results for Trolls World Tour have exceeded our expectations and demonstrated the viability of personal video on demand." And this, again, Wall Street Journal also was one of the first ones to report these numbers. They made $110 million as of this recording. Could be higher, which is definitely around the ballpark of what the first Trolls movie made in theaters at this point, give or take. And that's not really counting. I believe it's not counting worldwide. Don't believe that's counting worldwide numbers yet either. So for them, that's looking really good. But as soon as that report came out, AMC made a very declarative statement, news release, and they wanted to repeat over and over again, like, we are not joking, we are not doing business with Universal until they come back to the table and have this conversation. Or specifically the language used, until they respect theater window practices. If you don't know what theater window practices mean, effectively it's the same thing that you've experienced as you've been growing up watching movies. Is there's a time that the movie is in the theater, and then there's a time when it leaves the theater, and then it's okay to go into Blu-ray, or like back in the day, like your Blockbusters and so on and so forth. So that is a contract negotiation that the theaters and movie studios do to and some of that also includes the percentages that you'd have between the movie house and the studio. Of like, we'll get 60% of the cut when it's in the theaters, and you'll get 40%. And then once it's done, then that's ours after the theater run. So basically, what AMC is doing is like, okay, we're not gonna support you until you come back to the table and have this conversation, because we don't feel like this statement was in good faith for supporting theater houses.
I'm a bit concerned about that one, because eventually someone is, during this conversation, someone's going to scream, but won't somebody think of the investors?
Go ahead.
Yeah. Just in that, there's part of me as a moviegoer, again, there's a part of me that actually looks forward to some of this with, say, young adult films that appeal to adults as well, or immature people. In that, like, I would love to see Into the Spider-Verse or Bumblebee again, or a Bumblebee-like movie without a screaming kid. And so that gives parents an option that they don't have to deal with the embarrassment and the inertia that's involved with going out to the theater. They can pay like $25 and get their shot. And then people who love the experience of going to a movie can enjoy it with less things being screamed and thrown at them.
I want to give a shout out to Dan Merrill on his new, you know him from Screen Junkies, did the like movie fights and so on and so forth. He's out on his own platform, and I was listening to his chart, not charting with Dan. He can't technically call it that anymore, but he's just going over box office numbers the on-demand numbers, because it's all we can really go over right now, and brought up some really good points and broke down the numbers of there's so much more money that the studios get to keep when it's on demand, that AMC, while I do agree with them, they were right to call this out. It's like, yes, you need to kind of do a gut check a little bit to Universal and to any other studios that want to make this statement. You don't really have the leverage, though, and I think that was a great point he articulated. It's like, this leverage is not as firm as you think it is. And if the biggest, because AMC is the biggest chain in the U.S., and the biggest chain right now is facing bankruptcy. It's like, are they facing bankruptcy? It's like, no, their debt load is over like half a million. No, it might be more. I can go back and pull that. No, sorry, folks. $500 million debt load.
That's not chicken scratch.
No,
but
it's not chicken scratch. So you definitely need Universal more than they need you right now. And it's not saying that you need to kowtow to the studios by any means. Like, they'll get back to the table, and I'm sure they're going to have a conversation and they'll figure this out. But they may have gone a little too strong right now, and I wouldn't be surprised if they lose some power at the table when they talk about this.
Yep, actually, I would be kind of interested to see if this turns into a buyout.
I don't know who's going to be able to do it, though.
No, I was thinking about the studios. Studios starting to buy out theaters. Farm to table, if you will.
I wouldn't put it past them. Something else I can't put past studios that they always want to make those sweet remake sequel dollars. Tom,
yes,
you want to talk about this?
Great news, everyone! Great news for those of you who said, there's just something missing from Demolition Man. Now there is a Demolition Man 2 in the works. Stallone is back in it, apparently. No word on if Sandra Bullock will reprise her role either. But
she might want those $6
too. In the books of things that didn't need to be made this week, apparently Demolition Man is adding itself to it. Yeah. So that's happening.
Well, we could learn finally what the three seashells and how they operate.
Yes.
If that's
actually
go ahead.
The big question is, will Dennis Leary join again?
Oh, right. He seems like the rebellion leader down in the sewers, or in like the under catacombs, like old LA.
Yep.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah. But I'm just people. Let's maybe take some risks with some original stories, like maybe Spiral.
Yeah, maybe Spiral. This is like a
no. It's not.
It's not. Sorry. One thing I'll say on original movies that, hey Hollywood, how about you go back to like movies that failed horribly and see if you could rework concepts that and this is not an original idea for me, but it's one I've heard before and I love it. It's just, hey, that movie bombed back in the 80s. Let's see if we could rework the concept, or write a better screenplay and see if we could pump out a better addition to this property. Like, that's what I would like to see.
And actually, so I will say not necessarily the term bombed, because, for example, I have always wanted a faithful remake of Starship Troopers, faithful to the book. Starship Troopers in no way bombed. In fact, it was the opposite and spawned like 7 other straight-to-video adaptations.
And a kids' TV show, which I'm not sure how you really do, but there's a Starship, Roughneck Starship Troopers, like CGI back in like late 90s, coming right off the Beast Wars high.
Yep. So maybe consider that. There's a whole library of Arthur C. Clarke books that could be like turn into some good movies.
Do it. But no, instead we choose to go back to the barrel of Saw. So we were talking about Spiral. All right. To be fair, though, the reason the news is that it got pushed back a year. It's supposed to come out this May. It got pushed back to May 2021. The only reason I was really excited about it wasn't just because of Samuel L. Jackson and Chris Rock in the movie, but it seemed like it was trying to get back to the thriller vibes that the first Saw had, when Danny Glover is pursuing the killer, really trying to crack the case in that way. Like, those parts of the original Saw are fantastic. Like, that still holds up. I would go pop Saw back in right now and really enjoy those moments of it before it got into the torture porn that has become known for.
Yep.
Yeah. Let's change from murder in small rooms or big warehouses to a murder on the eyes in space.
Yes.
I guess it's not a murder on the eyes, but Tom Cruise is in talks with Elon Musk and other space agencies like SpaceX, NASA, to see about the feasibility of shooting in space. I had to reread it because I thought, wait, do you mean you're going to shoot a space movie and you're asking for technical expertise? No, that's how real Tom Cruise wants to be. He actually wants to shoot in space. How you feel about that, Tom?
I don't care.
You don't
I
care?
mean, well, it's just I'm done with Tom Cruise, and this is just every movie since Oblivion has been Tom Cruise's need to feel alive and to hang on to his youth. You know, like the only reason Top Gun 2 is being made is because he got an opportunity to fly an F-18. That is it.
Okay,
I mean,
I'm not gonna lie.
Tom Cruise is going to make this movie so that he can go into space. And
I mean,
my money's on Bezos doing it.
The little kid in me is like, all right, but that's kind of awesome, though.
You know, I mean, it is. So, one story, and my apologies to Brian Cook for calling him out on this, but when we were like in 4th grade, we were watching the original Battlestar Galactica.
Oh boy!
And I just had it in my head as we were watching. He's like, "Man, these space battles are kind of cool," and I'm like, "You know, they're real, right?" And he's like, "What?" I was just like, "Yeah."
You did not.
I've got my cousin Inessa was telling me that Battlestar Galactica is real, and the government allows the filming of those ships, which are actual real ships, doing dogfights, pretend dogfights, so that when someone starts saying, "Hey, the Air Force has a space force," and they're going to Mars and other things like that, we can say plausible deniability. Here's this stupid sci-fi show, and I had him going for about a good hour on that. But I want to see a movie filmed in space as well. But I don't want it to be a Tom Cruise film. I would rather, I'd take Nick Cage over that.
You would take Nick Cage?
Yep.
Would you take Nick Cage as the Tiger King?
Yes, I would. Yes, I would.
So if you didn't know, there's a new TV show coming out, and it's casting different people to do a fictionalized version of nonfiction with Tiger King, and Nick Cage has been cast in the titular role of the Tiger King, or Joe Exotic.
So this explains to me why, like, what's his face from Wayne's World was dressed up like this. Like, a bunch of celebrities were doing Tiger King imitations, and I didn't realize that they were auditions.
What, David Spade?
Yep.
Joe Dirt?
Yeah, David Spade. And it's really bothering me that I can't remember this guy's name.
Oh, Dana Carvey.
Not Dana Carvey.
You said Wayne's World before, so that made me think.
Wayne's World. Yes, he was one of the villains in Wayne's World.
Oh.
He's known for being pretty, and I'm almost there. Thank you, fast internet. Rob Lowe.
Oh.
Yeah.
I don't know, though. I'm kind of curious what Kate, like, all right, so my objection is only that I don't think the show needs to exist, because I think fiction was, I think nonfiction was better.
That was real. Yeah.
Because the fact that it was real and it kept getting worse was more interesting in my mind than someone trying to, like, because where do you go from here? It's like if people are trying to make fun of current events happening right now in the news, it's like, I mean, good luck, but unfortunately, reality is doing a lot better than what you're coming up with.
Yes, no, there is yet to be a TV show or movie set for Jumanji that has 2-inch long Asian hornets that can kill you.
What was it? Tracker Jacker? Was it in Hunger Games? Of course, they're not massive, just more poisonous or something. Whatever. Oh goodness. Yeah. Apparently, those have been here for a little bit, but it's like they're swarming or something. Okay, I'm not diving into hornets. I want to dive into something funner. We want to give some kudos to the British version of Vogue, because they have put Dame Judi Dench on the cover, and that would make her the oldest person to have ever been on the cover of British Vogue. So Excellent
Yes.
job, Vogue.
I love this. I love the Dame. She was possibly the best M ever in history.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
think also the longest running. I have to double check that. I think also the longest running M in the 00 series.
She might be. She's done the most movies, I'm sure. I'm not 100% sure if she's been the longest though. Like period of time. Because there was like,
gotcha. Yeah, because then we pumped out more during the Bronson and good.
But yeah, I will go see almost anything with her in it. She's one of those go-to people. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I'm excited about that. I'm glad Vogue did that. Also, I find it fascinating. It started with Teen Vogue, and it looks like Vogue is kind of taking the lead from Teen and being a bit more. They're going back to their original roots. They're like 1918 roots of being kind of a women's lib and thoughtful magazine for women instead of a magazine about women, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so like championing particular issues and causes more.
Yes, the F word, one woman weighs in on body positivity. Instead of how to not be fat anymore, it's how to embrace it.
Yeah.
Or fashion's echo evolution. They're talking about real things now, which I really appreciate.
Real things.
Rail things.
Real things. Unfortunately, we have to go back to not real things.
And unfortunately, it's also Batman v Superman. Batman v Superman. They took out the S because they hoped it would suck less.
But that's not the case.
No.
So I just want to super quick. Nerd Union as a website and group of writers, we've covered this time period. I've covered this time period a lot. Again, I forgot that we hadn't actually done a Man of Steel review, but as far as the conversations we've had on the team and staff about Zack Snyder, fairly or unfairly, it's just he's been on our mind and or like the discussion boards or things that we're going to cover for a long time, and especially this time period and the lead up to Batman v Superman and afterwards, and just the state of DCU. That's definitely part of the reason that we're going back for this rewatch. But if there's any movie I could identify that like put kindling and extra logs on the fire, it was Batman v Superman. Like I can talk about we're rewatching other ones, and there might be some other hopefully some other things pop up into my head, especially after having not watched those after a while. But this one is what if anything set our team ablaze, it was this one.
Yeah, that one. It did. It incensed me instead of setting me ablaze. It made me want to set the theater ablaze at the end of it. I remember watching this with I think I saw this with Sarah Loke, and the only time I sweared at a theater more was Into Darkness, Star Trek Into Darkness.
No.
But and it's honestly it's for the same reasons, a lot of the same reasons, in that the people who made the movie seem to have no understanding of the subject matter. And they relied on the stupidity of the audience in order to propel their story forward. So that's my frame for this conversation.
I think it's a solid frame.
Let's dive into it.
So last time we started with positives and we kind of peppered those in when we could. I do feel like, though, I have more positives for Batman v Superman than I did in the past, and even when we were talking about Man of Steel last week. And I'd like to kind of hit those super quick.
Sure.
One, the physical embodiment of Batman by Ben Affleck, I think, is really, really good. The fight in the warehouse. If you're trying to do a Frank Miller Batman, I think that is that's a very great stylizing of it, how brutal that particular Batman is. So I didn't walk away from that scene thinking like, oh, that's not Batman. It's like, again, it is a version of Batman, but it is like it's a full representation of that Frank Miller Batman.
Yes.
Let's see. For better or worse, with the Superman that we have in this universe, I know we're going to tear into him a little bit more in a second, but the government's reaction to him going forward and the things that happen in Africa, and just the general public's perception of this Batman, because he hasn't had the time to save them, and other things are more like earth-shattering and like world-shattering kind of things. There is a lot of distrust. So when that's displayed in the movie, I think that's actually very genuine. It's probably some of the better moments. Even though we wish it was happening more of our bigger characters in the movie, those side anecdotes and TV interviews and conversations that are happening there, I think those are actually really, really solid.
I agree with that, and especially when you consider that, as we discussed last week, Superman's first foray into the Earth-saving business was a complete botch by Superman standards. Memory popped in there. There's an old Superman game, I think, on Sega, and
sorry, I was like, please don't say N64. Don't say that one. Please don't say that one. It's so bad.
But the interesting premise of that Superman game was Superman was invulnerable, but the goals were saving the city. So this, when you were trying to fight the big boss, the city had a damage meter that you had to save it before a certain point, as opposed to Superman, which that is a great representation of what I think Superman should be about.
Yeah.
So I'm going to try and dig deep and give some positives.
Oh gosh.
So I think that, visually it is great. That is it. Visually it is great. As I've said before, Snyder should be a cinematographer, not a director, not a producer. So he creates great scenes.
Yeah. And there's a great video series that talks about that, or one video that talks about the difference between like connecting character arcs together, and his movies tend to do really good scenes, but they don't always like connect together well.
Yeah, there's no tissue in between them. And the other thing that I liked was, I do agree with you. His representation of Batman physically fighting, even though there was a lot of physics. What physics going on in those battles?
Don't worry, it's fine.
I think it is. He did an excellent representation of Frank Miller's style Batman. Whether I think that that's the right choice is a whole different conversation, but he did do a good job of that, and I think Ben Affleck did a decent he actually did a decent balance between Batman and Bruce Wayne.
Yes.
And to quote the 40-year-old virgin, as they were talking about his best friend, I used to think Affleck was really a Streisand until this Batman movie came out. Turns out he's kind of badass.
Completely agree.
Go ahead.
I was going to say one thing about Batfleck. One, we definitely miss you, good sir. Wish you'd been able to stay on as Batman for any future movies, but I am excited about the Matt Reeves version. And I did. Oh gosh, talking about the internet being terrible. Like when he was getting the reviews were coming out and they're trying to be positive, and there's that one that circulates of him and Henry Cavill sitting next to each other, and he's just like in the dumps as they're talking about it. And I'm like, I probably did laugh about it at the time. Now knowing everything he was going through that time period, it's not cool. So I think there's I'm bringing that up to like reiterate. It's like we're talking about the failures of this movie, things we'd love to see change or get better in the future, but this is not to like bemean Snyder or the other actors and things that are involved involved in this production or any other time that we talk about a movie. It's just like we're just we had the benefit of hindsight. We've talked about this before, so it's easy for us to kind of pick some things out. But there can be a line when you've gone too far as far as like picking on someone. And I remember after this movie vividly, those moments happening online and it just being completely like really ugly. Yeah.
I yes, and I feel for them, but at the same time, I said this before, right? Last week.
I mean, get into it. Let's get into it.
I don't feel. I feel bad for Cavill. I feel bad for Affleck. I do not feel bad for Snyder because Snyder came in with his own. It's his own ego that created that situation. Because when you compare him to say, Favreau or a bunch of the Marvel directors who had just an ounce of humility towards the subject matter and allowed the subject matter to help them tell the story instead of saying, screw this, I'm telling my own story. This is all a lot of the things that fans panned were active decisions by Snyder. It were active decisions for him to break the mold of the DC universe. Yeah. Which, maybe that was his marching orders from DC and Warner Brothers. I'm not sure, but I've never heard him say that. I've heard him say what he wants out of it. Yeah. In all of his interviews. So I don't have a lot of sympathy for him, but I do have a lot of sympathy for the cast.
It's kind of one of those. It reminds me of in dance when we're teaching a class and someone immediately asks for, hey, so can I make this variation, or could I change this, or could I try doing this? And the reason, and I don't want to say I'll get upset, but the reason I'll get annoyed is you don't have a firm grasp of the basic concepts of this dance yet to be making changes to it. And that's what I felt about, like, we could go back to Man of Steel and say that same thing of, like, you want to make a change to Superman, but you don't understand who he is yet. So why do you think your interpretation is valid and or accurate? And then now fast forwarding to this movie, it's just now doubling down on that exact same thing. It's like, so you still don't understand it, so you're going to go pull in another character that you don't really understand and try to have these two interact. And the confusion and talking over one another that's happening in this movie is a result of not understanding either one of these characters. And the mistakes and failures they make in this movie, again, is based off of that. It's like, you don't understand why they typically would not get into that situation. So if you want to get them into this spot, you have to do things that are within their character that would get them to that spot. And or if you said things have changed, sell us on those changes so we can understand, oh, this Batman and Superman's different, and this is how they got to where they are. Neither one of those things happen.
Yep. And like the impression that I got throughout the entire thing, and we're going to probably beat this dead horse, is I think he read The Dark Knight Returns, and maybe that's it, and said that's good enough. Yeah. That's a Batman Superman fight. Instead of like pulling from the hundreds of Batman Superman comics that are out, The World's Finest and other things or The World's Greatest, something like that. Anyway, not important. I do want to add one more positive thing about Batman v Superman. Gal Gadot and Wonder Woman. Wonder
Woman is awesome in this movie. Fantastic. Actually, that should have been part of my number one.
Yes.
I'm sorry, Gadot.
Because just her delivery, and she was working against a lot of stuff. Because and I was bringing this up as I was going through this with Bria, and I was just like, notice the difference between Wonder Woman's outfit in this one and Wonder Woman's outfit in Wonder Woman. And then notice how many ass shots are in this movie versus Wonder Woman. And it
happens again in Justice League too. The Amazonians are completely different. Golly.
Yes.
Bless you, Patty Jenkins.
Yes, and also again that goes back to Snyder's ego, in that, oh, Patty Jenkins made this thing and everybody's loving it, and I'm starting to film. Forget that. We need weightlifter Amazonians with midriff. That's what we need. That's what this film's been missing. So, can we actually also the other thing that worried me about it, and I'm glad it didn't translate into the film, was that Snyder wouldn't let Gal Gadot on the set until she gained 10 pounds of muscle. Like, he put on a lot of physical requirements for her. There's not a lot of conversation about like the workouts that Ben or Soups had to go through.
Mm-hmm.
But they did talk a lot about Gal's workouts and how she had to add 10 pounds and other things like that, which irritated me a bit.
Yeah. To your point, Kumail Nanjiani for the Eternals recently had his Marvel glow up photo, because he showed where his body was at pre-Eternals, and then showed it and after getting ready for the Eternals. Was talking about the and if I remember correctly, it wasn't talking about it being like a confidence booster. It was talking about how much work it is to be able to get that, and then the battle his mind was playing to be in that kind of shape, or some of the pressures behind creating that shape. Which is the thing I don't think people talk about when like Chris Pratt and others have gone through, because Chris Pratt definitely does not look. There's Andy Dwyer, Parks and Rec, Chris Pratt. This is a completely different dude from Chris Pratt who you've seen in Jurassic World and Star-Lord. And that's not an easy thing or way to live your life between role to role. I know it's something that they've picked to being in that profession, but it's also based off a lot of
there's a lot of useless help. Yeah. It's kind of like, in my job, when people start creating these weird deadlines that have no tie to reality other than I want it done in January. Why? There's do we have a deadline? Do we have a customer that wants it? Nope, I just want this done in January. Like, okay. Well, Chris Pratt, we want you to have a 12-pack. Okay. Why does Star Wars? Why does a lazy space pirate need to have a 12-pack?
It's not a surprise. It would also apply to Godot. Not surprising.
I mean, and the only in fairness that I'll throw to Snyder in this is that that is not nearly as bad as what he made 50 people go through for 300. He had them all go to a 10-week long camp where they could only eat chicken, brown rice, and broccoli, and it was basically a Spartan boot camp for 10 weeks. One of the guys lost 80 pounds in 10 weeks.
That's not good. It's not healthy.
Part of me wants to where do I sign up for that? But then I have to become a movie star. So, one thing after the other. Let's talk about another thing that sucks.
Just playing out the hits.
Yes. Can we talk about how stupid all the characters are in this? Like, intellectually dumb most of the characters seem in this.
I have one person I say it doesn't apply to, but go ahead. Oh, actually, I have two people I think it doesn't apply to, but go ahead.
Fire away.
I don't think it applies to Lois Lane because
no.
Oh, and I would say that's another positive is that her journalistic streak and arc from the previous movie that we thought was really strong. I think that continues here with a caveat. The director's cut makes it better because if you only watch the theatrical, she does seem dumb. You're like, what are you doing? And a lot of her investigation gets cut off, or there's pieces missing that you don't know about. So you're like, it doesn't seem like. Are you just like sitting on your thumbs or twiddling? Like what's going on? Director's cut showed like you could just put all those scenes together and it's like, oh yeah, you're doing the same work you did in the previous movie. Love it, fantastic. It's just the information doesn't make its way to Superman, but that's not her fault. That's more, we'll get to that in a second.
Yes.
And then Holly Hunter as the senator. Sorry, that was the other one. I feel like
Holly Hunter. I'll add one more. Alfred,
Jeffrey Irons in this movie is really good.
Alfred was not dumb. He like every once in a while, he would look at Bruce and be like, "Slow your roll, dude. Maybe chill. Maybe invite the woman that just woke up in your bed for breakfast and take a day off." Yeah. But woof. So the thing that made me so angry throughout this entire film was the stupid departures from who these characters were and the willful stupidity of Batman and Superman. Mm-hmm. This is like, if you go back to comic lore, I cannot necessarily speak to Frank Miller comics because I don't know if I've ever gotten through a complete graphic novel of Frank Miller's. I've started to read them. I just don't enjoy them. And Frank Miller's Batman is definitely dumber, which is telling because Frank Miller wrote it.
I have thoughts, but go ahead.
But Batman, who is supposed to be like one of the top 10 smartest people in the DC universe, at least on Earth, can't see that he's being played. Like his whole shtick is that he understands people's motivations, figures them out, and sometimes plays them against themselves. And he didn't. Yeah. And he couldn't. Superman is dumb in an out of character kind of way because the way that he handles the whole "your mom's gonna die" thing is not come in, disarm Batman as quick as possible and then say, "Listen, dude, I need your help." He decides to just go toe to toe with him on Batman's terms instead of being the frickin' god on Earth that he is, establishing dominance right away and then being nice or being kind and be like, "Could you help me out?"
Right.
Go ahead.
One thing I'll say is like, because I'll have there's going to be two rebuttals that are going to come through that. Someone will say, "Well, Batman was blind with rage." So I'm like, he's been blind with rage before, but could still figure stuff out. So I'm going to knock that rebuttal out. Boom. Or even if you're going to say like, because technically people have rated Luthor smarter than Batman. It's like, okay, fine. But he should still, to your point of being played, he should still know something is wrong. If he hasn't figured it out yet, It's one thing, but he should still know that he's getting played. Two, to your point about trying to disarm Batman, the other thing that speaks to it, people are like, well, he was trying to do that. I'm like, no. You told this guy to stop being Batman, and then what does he do? He goes and gets an armored suit and says, "Here I am, I'm ready to." And he's been goaded on by Luthor. So you trying to go, like, you have to use a different tactic. Exactly what you were just saying. Like, there's no like, let me beat him down in submission, and then he'll like exactly to your point. It's like that is not going to work. If this was like 30 or an hour earlier in the movie when you stopped him in the Batmobile and he was chasing the truck, that might have worked. This guy is too far gone. It's like the chance to have a conversation is over. So you really have to walk everything back and disarm everything back to get him to cool his jets and like calm down and think rationally. But that's what he tries to do in the mini conversation that happens when he gets some words out of his mouth and he just abandons it and just goes, "No, I'm going to take you down." I'm like, that's not going to work. It's not going to work in this case.
No. Like, I mean, textbook. There is, I I think it's the New 52. Shoot. I can't remember if it's New 52 or another one, but there's a period of time when Superman loses his powers in the comics. Happens all the time. But in the last 10, 15 years, there was a series where Supes lost his powers in the process of saving the universe. It was right after the Light Wars, I think. And he was watching... He's basically watching Supergirl stop a problem. And he's like going through the playbook of how he taught her to do it, which was, remove the danger, assess the situation, talk to people, then take action. And that's... he didn't do it. He walked in and said, listen, I know you hate me, but help me. And... then he let Batman play around with a couple of his toys, and that kind of I think that fueled Batman more, that he could pull this off, as opposed to Superman should have pulled in Africa. If he just went in at the speed of sound, picked up Batman in his power suit, and flew him up 10,000 feet into the air, or 20,000 feet into the air,
like,
where the oxygen is a little bit lighter. Yeah.
So let's have a conversation, or I'm going to drop you. There won't be a damn thing you can do about it.
And then be like, listen, I don't want to fight you. Help my mom. And then, then he could just... I'll save that comment for later when we get to it.
The other thing... And I don't want to keep jumping back between theatrical and director's cut. If I end up watching this movie anytime, it's always watching the director's cut. And we were talking offline that, like, Batman, even though he looks dumb, in either version he still looks the least dumb. Unfortunately for Superman, most of his stuff gets cut in the theatrical, so he ends up looking worse. But even when you add those back in, then the attack in Africa looks more glaring of like, wait, so you mean to tell me you jumped in, saved Lois, and jumped back out? Because all it would have taken was for you to be there on the ground as that plot's unraveling and be like, hey, no, I didn't do that. Like, I literally came in, saved Lois. Like, that's all I did. And the satellites probably could also prove that as well, unless Luthor masked that as well. But then be like, oh, a very fast object moved and got here, and then it took back off. Like, because he spends no time providing himself or being accountable, which maybe that's part of the theme. Going back to the theme of the movie, is that he hasn't done that. He's just being Superman, hasn't let himself be accountable to anyone. But that's also a very dumb. Like, he could have squashed this a lot sooner and put a real foil into Luthor's plan, and it just never happens. Like, to me, that just seems like a really simple fix. That's like, if your plan can be afforded that quickly, it's like, then you have a problem. It relies on stupidity, and it just doesn't track.
Yep, it relies on stupidity of both the characters and the audience. Mm-hmm. And I think like that's the recurring theme that I remember throughout the entire film watching experience in the theater, was I was insulted during the entire time. Because like we were spoon fed baby food, and it really wasn't there. I'm not sure how else to describe it, but I felt Snyder's disdain for the audience throughout that, and if not the subject matter.
Well, see, I don't know. I think that's how it reads or comes off, but again, it goes back to he thinks he understands it. So I don't know if I take it as disdain that he actually feels, but yeah, it comes across that way. But I think he legitimately believes he understands these characters, because I don't know if you would go down this route with them if you didn't. I'm just saying, I think it would be worse. I think if we probably got, and I don't want to imagine what that would look like, but I think we would have got a worse version if that were the case. Like, if he actually had a physical disdain for them.
Yeah, I will give you that. I think.
Let's see. So just plot wise, we could go over it a long time, but and we repeated over and over again that the difference between versions, even adding things back in, there's still some headaches, there's some scratchers. We're not going to go list by list, but the biggest ones is that the catalyst for the movie, the attack in Africa, just doesn't make a ton of sense. There's some leaps in logic of things that haven't been explained to this new audience. If these are new people coming into Superman, they don't know that he can't see through lead. That's a plot point that's in there, but it's just casually thrown in like, oh, it's covered in lead, so that's why he didn't catch the bomb. I'm like, but you actually haven't established that in these movies. Wait, so now...
And actually...
Oh, go ahead.
Did they say that in the film? Because Superman says a line after the sun is blown up, in where he says, like, I didn't catch it. I didn't see it. And, something about his arrogance or something like that, where... Yeah. So I don't remember the lead comment necessarily.
So it happens with Jenna Malone and Amy Adams. They're investigating. Like, she talks about why would he set up a bomb that also, but then also encase it in something that would deafen or restrict the blast. And she's like, "What are you talking about?" And she's like, "Oh, well, he lead lined the case." And then Lois just says, "Oh, so he couldn't see it." I'm like, but that. I know that because I've watched Superman, but you haven't said that in these movies. So, like, if anyone's brand new and like walked in, be like, why can't he see through lead? Let me back up. In director's cut, it's a minor gripe. It's like, you didn't really explain that, but this is the way you're bringing that in. Okay, fine. Back to the theatrical cut that everyone saw, that scene is not in there. So now people really like, why did he not see the bomb? Like, the lead comment never comes out in the original version. So just adding more baggage onto this Superman is dumb situation that should not exist. So again, if it had stayed in there, I probably could give it a pass of like, that's probably not how I would have brought out that he can't see through lead, but okay, fine. But you can't have that kind of critical piece and then it get lost on the cutting room floor.
Yes. And actually, I do want to talk about that, because that's actually... I want to talk about how dumb Superman is.
More? Yeah.
Well, mostly it's because, like, when I think about the comics, Superman's not dumb. In fact, Superman's one of the few people that Batman goes to if he can't figure something out. And also remember, he's a journalist. He was like an award-winning journalist, investigative journalist at that.
But he never questions who gave him those photos of Batman in the brand.
Yep.
Which is another, like, why as a journalist, why wouldn't he question who sent him this?
Yep. So it's super frustrating. Like, I'm thinking about, man, I'm feeling it's my old age right now. One of the most famous graphic novels, which involves the death of Elongated Man's wife. Shoot, and I can't remember the name of it right now. I will try and Google that once you start talking. But it was, they made this comment about, once Batman and, the listing off all these highly intelligent people were done with the room, they gave it to one other person who was a walking forensics office or forensics lab, and they cut to Superman standing in the doorway checking everything out, and like, yeah, he's somebody that as they become friends, Batman relies on Superman to fact check him and to make sure he's not crazy in both an intellectual investigative sense but also a moral sense. Yes.
This is going to come up when we have the Justice League conversation, inevitably. So I'm going to go ahead and preload it so people are aware. But it is hard growing up on the Bruce Timm
yes.
Justice League series And seeing that camaraderie between them two, even when they would bicker and they had fought, like, so that has happened. They didn't go to this degree, but they've had their disagreements. They've had their share of fights. Until you were talking about Superman being stupid, or sorry, Superman not being stupid. It's like, case in point, if you never read a Superman comic, but you watched that show, this should upset you. If you'd watched the Superman Adventures and the first animated one that's still in that universe but was separate before Justice League came out, this should upset you.
Yes, because the first time that they meet each other, they both figure it out at the same time who the other person is, and that is a huge plot point. That is a matter of equivalence between them.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also, speaking of, by the way, the name of the comic is Identity Crisis. It's actually amazing. Go read it. It actually centers around Elongated Man, and which is kind of fascinating that they made that choice. But it is a really good mystery, and it's a deep mystery. But going back to everybody being dumb, there is one other person who isn't dumb, and again, it's Wonder Woman. She knows exactly what she needs and what she needs to do. She is possibly the calmest and clearest head out of everyone in that movie, which is not surprising. But that's also that is the one role of the Trinity of Justice League characters, Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, that Snyder got right. In spite of overwhelming crotch shots, is that she was always kind of the balance between the light and the dark from Batman and Superman.
Yeah. That still stood out in the rewatch. Can't really pick any holes in it. Her having to watch the videos with the other metahumans, if that's how you're going to present them, fine, but it really has nothing to do with her. That's just how they...
No, she was an exposition vehicle.
Yeah. And it is clear when you're watching it that you're like, this is Justice League setup. This is Justice League setup. So every time she's on screen, it's like, this is Justice League setup. Oh my gosh. But it doesn't really distract from her as a character in the movie at all. It's just more of a commentary on what they were trying to do after this. I think I really only have two more big things that I want to get off my chest on it, and I think I'll be good. Okay, yeah, Jesse Eisenberg's Luthor is weird. Whatever. It is what it is. It may not have been the style I wanted for Luthor, but fine. It whatever. But talk about things being dumb. His motivations make sense. So I understand why he wants to do what he wants. That comes through crystal clear. It's the plan that just doesn't add up. In the same way that how did Batman and Superman figure it out? It's also this plot doesn't. It's not structured. Sorry, your plan is not structured in a way that would. I don't see how it would actually achieve the results that you wanted, assuming that these are Superman and Batman are acting as normal as we'd expect, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it seems. I always thought it was a little weird that, all right, I'm going to make these two crime titans fight each other to death. But if that doesn't work, I've also got this uncontrollable monster. There is no, to me. One, it should have been Bizarro instead of
Doomsday.
Thank you,
yeah.
God.
And then,
my memory's not working today.
And shout out to Mando v Movies, because loved that rewrite. Just loved that suggestion. I think that was fantastic change.
But the thing that drove me crazy about this is yes, this Luthor is a little bit wilder, but he's also not supposed to be an idiot. And maybe, again, Bruce Timm and Paul Dini ruined a lot of writing for me of future things, because I love calm, cool, collected Lex Luthor. And the dude that voiced the Flash, who ended up playing Lex Luthor in Smallville, he pulled the same thing. Matt Rosenbaum.
Oh yeah.
He was, he had a swagger, but it was always refined, cool, calm, and collected.
Or if you even think about animated Luthor, with Clancy Brown's voice acting of him. Oh gosh.
Like, here's like my perfect Lex Luthor right now is Vin Diesel with some dictation lessons. Like, if you could get Vin Diesel,
Clancy Brown around for a year, and
get that grovelly voice, but throw in some like finishing school refinement to it and some diction, and you would make an amazing Lex Luthor. Learn how to wear a suit instead of a suit wearing you, and that's not a shot at Vin Diesel. It's just more that Vin Diesel is mostly plays characters that wear wife beaters, and
talk about family, because we're family. You can't. So my family.
I was kind of excited about Jesse Eisenberg playing that role. And again, I was not thrilled with the execution of that.
Yeah,
it could have been really good. Also, his rants were a bit. Something happened to him that drove him a little mad. Because throughout the entire thing, he seems crazy. Like his talk about the peach tea conversation and just all these little rants about gods and other things like that made me think, okay, something happened to him that even in the director's cut they don't hint to. Like at the end of the film, he's making the ding 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 noise.
So at least that part at the end makes more sense when you see Steppenwolf holding the mother boxes. Because it ends up evaporating away. So possibly, it's a matter of like, was Steppenwolf actually there, or was that just a projection from the archives of the Kryptonian ship? Because that is a little confusing. Like, is he actually there, or is it something else going on? But Luthor being a little off by the end in the jail cell, I'm actually okay with. To your points, like, doesn't really seem to be a catalyst for it, but something happened. Or is it really just his acting on this was that weird? And that's I don't know.
Yeah, it's just like I felt like the writers, when they were blocking out the storyline, they forgot to tell that. And now Luthor's quite crazy. Why? Who cares?
It just of course he's a villain. That's just what happens at the end. They just go off. That's all it is.
He lost. That's what made him crazy. And like that's the thing is like it. If my understanding of Lex Luthor is strong enough, and I could see that he was trying to do it of, hey, save your mom, kill Batman for me, and once you do that, you're mine. Maybe, but they don't really play that out. But if Lex genuinely thought that there was a bigger alien threat that he needed to help save the world from.
Oh, yeah, then none of the movie makes sense if that's the case.
Yeah, I mean, other than if this is his ill-gotten attempt to try and control Superman in some way, or to see if he can control Superman in some way, it still doesn't work out. Like, it just... all their motivations are muddled in this, except for Wonder Woman. She just wants her damn picture back.
That's easy. Shouldn't be that hard.
Yeah.
There's a positive I didn't get to talk about, and I think I got everything out. I do think the score for this movie is pretty good.
It's not bad.
Yeah, it matches the tone that they're trying to set. I still listen to it from time to time. Again, gives me another chance to listen to Hans Zimmer. And then if you liked Mad Max and Junkie XL, what he did with Zimmer on that, so you see his influence in on this one as well. So I think that's really solid. But overall, it's just I did not enjoy going back.
Nope.
I was bored. And honestly didn't perk back up until the fight happened. Until the fight between Batman and Superman happened, to be completely honest.
Oh, you know what? That's actually something. I'm sorry, I'm adding 10 more minutes to this conversation already.
How could you?
Superman's final maneuver.
Oh,
just
it was on
pisses
my list.
me
Sorry.
off.
That just
Because one, all right, you're gonna kill one, like the sequel to Superman is Dawn of Justice, Batman v Superman. The titular character is gonna die in the third act, saving the world with a spear that somehow, and I'm gonna bring up the physics thing again, during the battle, during the battle between Batman and Superman, I don't know how Batman was able to like swing Superman around through pillars, biosuit enhancements aside.
Yeah, it was a little weird.
So like just being within like 10 feet of that thing weakened him to being almost useless, Superman. And now he's able to pick up the damn spear and fly with it fast enough to penetrate Doomsday's skin. Ugh. And somehow that kills him. Like,
but Wonder Woman is right there. Wonder Woman's right there. All you had to do was walk the spear over to her, like, I'll hold the rope. I'll hold the lasso of truth. You go take care of it. Because what else breaks down in that scene is that he tries to stab Doomsday. More of the sparks come off, and then she loses her grip because there's too much going on. But it's like, if you're holding that rope, it's not saying she couldn't handle it. But there's a lot going on. It's like, but if you're holding it, she can do her thing because she's not going to be weakened. One, not weakened going up to the attack, and could still be plunging it into Doomsday as you're holding. Like, it's just.
Yes. And it's not like an Amazonian is unfamiliar with spears.
Better in this situation. You know what? This movie's just making Wonder Woman out to be more and more badass, which is what.
Yes.
Hence the reason I'm excited about 1984. But I feel like it's all we could just come back to. It's like this entire DCEU is just making us more excited for 1984, and we don't want to talk about anything else.
It's true. After we're done with this, I'm gonna watch Wonder Woman as a palate cleanser.
Yeah.
As a DC palate cleanser, maybe followed up by, I
was like, Suicide Squad's technically next, which I think I agree with you. I'll watch Wonder Woman to make myself feel better, but Suicide Squad, we could probably mix it up however we want.
Do we have to go through to Suicide Squad, really?
Yeah, that was technically next.
Okay, fine.
I got a bag of goodies lined up for that one.
Oh man, I'm gonna go on a feminist rant. Who would have thought 20 years ago me would be on this feminist rant about how they treated Harley Quinn?
Oh gosh.
Well, Harley Quinn / Margot Robbie.
I was gonna say at least Birds of Prey was a 180 from that, but yeah, we'll be here all night if we start on Suicide Squad. But yeah, how she's done in Suicide Squad is awful. Hopefully, James Gunn has done a better job because they wrapped production on the Suicide Squad reboot or new movie. And then, yeah, Birds of Prey.
Is it still Margot Robbie?
Yeah, still Margot Robbie.
Okay.
So.
Okay, I have thoughts.
Yeah, so hopefully it made those fixes. But folks, I think that just about wraps up our Batman v Superman critique. Curious, did you have a score in mind?
Yeah, I do. What's yours?
Okay, so I struggled a little bit because I went back and read my old reviews, and I don't know if I'd necessarily change. I'm not going to change my theatrical cut score. So that was 3 out of 10. And I think that definitely deserved that 3 because we got to talk about all the plot errors and things like that. Just how awful that viewing experience was for me. I was viscerally in the theater upset. Like, I don't understand what's going on. And if we were going to do it again, and I've never gone back to rewatch the theatrical cut because I really don't have an interest to. But if I did, I'm assuming the same thing would happen. So I'm very comfortable keeping that the same. When I redid the director's cut a couple years ago, when it came out during that time frame, I gave it a 6 out of 10. That's the only one I'm kind of waffling on as far as like, should I bump that back down? And I'm going to leave it where it is for right now. But when I actually rewrite this up or go back through and do a review update on the written article, I might drop that down another notch. So I wouldn't be surprised if it goes down to 5 out of 6 or something like that. But definitely definitely theatrical cut is 3 out of 10. Like it's basically unwatchable. And I know people would be like, but Batman's still, like, it doesn't make sense.
Nope. And so that is my. So I said, I gave 5 out of 10 for Man of Steel, and that is the second worst. So this is absolutely the worst movie in my opinion. Actually, I hate it more than Suicide Squad, and part of the reason, and there's a reason why, is because Suicide Squad, there's not as much emotional investment in it. This is not a beloved subject matter of Suicide Squad. Like it was so easy. Like Snyder basically took on the equivalent of fighting a 3-year-old in a boxing match. Decided to completely screw that up. And
throw it in the towel. It's a baby. I'm throwing it in the towel. Mickey, get me out of here. I'm throwing it.
Like, I can't remember a film that made me feel as insulted while watching it as I was during Batman v Superman.
Oh, I can think of more.
There aren't many, if there are. There are movies that just made me mad that this is stupid, or they think that I'm stupid, but this one was... again, this is like Cecil B. DeMille saying, "Yeah, you know what? Moses is actually all about whoring women and all right. Moses is in Egypt, but now he's a pimp." And they just basically turn it into like a 70s blaxploitation film, as opposed to the biblical story that everyone has known for like at least 1700 years.
All he's missing was a colorful jacket and the fedora and the feather. Kramer walking down in Seinfeld.
Exactly.
Gator. He's Gator. Or I guess it'd be crocodiles technically. He's crocodile. All right. Okay.
So yeah, 3 out of 10.
All right. I'm gonna think about it. I'm gonna think about what I'll do for director's cut. But sorry, go ahead.
What I'm going to say about this is, because there are some people that actually think of movies in this way, is it is still visually beautiful, but I like stories, and I like stories that make sense. Therefore, it's a 3. If I was just watching it for the pictures, I'd probably give it a 6 out of 10.
Yeah. I think that's where I'm still... I don't want to... I hate to say the phrase "turn your brain off," because I think that can be kind of a slap in the face, and that's not what I'm intending. I'm not telling the audience to turn their brain off. And it's definitely not trying to say like, "Oh, as reviewers, we know better than." That's not what I'm saying. But there can be a thing where I'm overthinking something, and if I just let that piece go for a bit, I can enjoy it more. And I think that's where I'm at when I'm watching this and giving it a 6 out of 10. Is where I'm like,
sure.
If I set some things aside for a moment, I can still enjoy pieces of it or enjoy most of the experience. But as soon as my critical hat turns back on, it's like, well, this doesn't... Yeah. All right. Well, we got through it. That was the... My worst one's coming up next week when we talk about Suicide Squad. But...
2 weeks.
2 weeks?
Yeah, we've got Justice League next week.
No, Suicide Squad's next for doing
Oh.
DCEU. So
Damn.
buckle up.
Damn. Okay, I thought we were going to get through the trilogy first, but okay.
Yeah,
I'll add that to the playlist this weekend.
because I think it's important to line out what was forcing the studio's hand in the lead up to Justice League, which is still. Yeah, never mind. Well, I don't want to. We're not going to start that, but we are going to talk about things you should watch this weekend.
Oh yes.
I failed pretty hard and did not really have anything ready to go. So the only thing I'm going to be doing plugs for we're watching Battlestar Wednesday night. We're going to be doing Cobalt's Last Gleaming parts 1 and 2, 8:30 Central. You can check out our Facebook page, and we're not streaming it to you. You definitely can pull up your own sci-fi app and watch along with us, but we'll have like a live chat on our Discord server and so on and so forth. And then watched Penny Dreadful episode 2 last week. Definitely gonna be watching again this week. After episode 2, I'm in. Like, they've got me. Like, the pilot was fine. It was like it did what it needed to do. But once episode 2 came out, I'm like, all right, I'm buckled in. I'm gonna watch this every week. You got me. So just really, really solid premise in 1930s LA. And we're already talking about like Mexican folklore and gods and things like that, but it's awesome. It's great.
That'll be on my list. So for me, I was contemplating there is a supercut of 1978 Superman that I've never seen or heard of until last week. So I'm gonna search that out and pick it up and see if one, talk about how well it holds up. 2, talk about any differences in feelings from the supercut. But a couple of other things to recommend, since I've been plugging it since we started rebroadcasting this podcast. Clone Wars season 7 is done, and
heard it was amazing.
It is the most amazing Star Wars story. The last 4 episodes is the best Star Wars ever put to screen.
Oh, you're killing me.
Ever put to screen.
I gotta get
people. They brought in Ray Park to do motion capture for the final scene.
I didn't know that.
Yep, they brought in Ray Park. So you're gonna see a lightsaber battle that the only one that even comes close is Vader in Rogue One. That is the only thing that comes even close. Nothing else
not
touches.
Even Duel of the Fates?
God, no. Absolutely not.
Whoa.
Absolutely not. Because not only did they get Ray Park, they got a seasoned weapons martial artist to do the motion capture of Ahsoka. So now you have 2 seasoned fighters doing the motion capture instead of, 2 actors and a martial artist doing it, where the martial artist is carrying all the weight of the battle. Duel of Fates is possibly the best live action battle. But
in the totality of Star Wars, you're saying, okay.
This is
because I'm not caught up on the previous season, so I don't even want to touch it. You're killing me.
And
that's not what
also,
I need to hear. I want you to tell me that it sucked and that I shouldn't waste my time.
Nope. Invest the time, Kenneth. Invest the time. And yeah, I'll admit it. I cried a bit. I felt a lot of feelings during that entire thing. So definitely people should go see that. One of the other things I brought up, did I bring up last week, Better Off Dead?
No, I don't think so.
So a couple weeks ago we talked about movies that don't hold up. And I was showing Bria Better Off Dead because she does burlesque and wanted to do we were developing a character, and I kind of wanted to throw in some pepper of the mom from Better Off Dead. So we decided to watch it, and watching it through the lens that we had from our podcast a couple weeks ago, Better Off Dead actually holds up.
Okay.
There isn't a lot of there's like one clear male gaze scene. There's not a whole lot of sexism. There's not a whole lot of racism. I mean, even there's a running joke between him having to race the two Japanese guys, but that really isn't. He's like, what's worse, somebody, an immigrant who comes to the country and doesn't know any language, or an immigrant that comes and only can speak like Howard Cosell? And like that is the most. That's the most commentary that he puts on it. And honestly, that is a hilarious premise of, imagine if someone came to this country and only learned English by watching Arnold Schwarzenegger movies.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'd say watch that.
Okay.
I'm continuing through The Last Ship. We're out of the plague and into the world building. And still holds up.
Stop it.
It still holds up, and it's probably one of Michael Bay's best work.
You didn't tell me Michael Bay was in that. Maybe you did. I blocked it out.
He's an executive producer. He isn't really.
All right.
He greenlighted it. I think that's about it.
Cool. Well, folks, that's been your What to Watch. We thoroughly dissected. I mean, we could go more point by point, but then it would be a 2-hour-long podcast on Batman v Superman. Thanks for joining us. As always, you can chat with us in our Discord. All of our links are available on Facebook, so if you want to watch this video on Facebook, get the quick hits of news, or check us out on our YouTube. All of these at Nerd Union and or State of the Nerd Union for any of those shows, for any of our shows. And definitely check out any articles that we got coming out this week. If you're following us on the Battlestar Rewatch, we got new episode recaps coming out every single week. But until then, next week, Suicide Squad, brace yourselves, and we'll see you next week.